Today we're going to talk about a talented Blender artist who works at a top VFX studio that was responsible for designing and modeling Sonic the Hedgehog. Alan Bulkus is a very talented artist who's going to share a lot of valuable information with us and how he was able to successfully work on some of his biggest projects. He starts off saying, "I used to play a bunch of online multiplayer games in my teens, and I got fascinated when I found out that I could build characters or even a complete game on my own machine. I first found out about Blender from a high school friend sometime in 2009. It was my first touch with any kind of 3D software and it became a hobby, and I was really hooked. I remember at first I thought it was a 2D software, as back as Blender 2.49 you would start in orthographic top view. It felt like such a breakthrough learning to navigate. It was surely frustrating at first, but I was seeing it as a really hard game to play in which I can do and create everything I can imagine. Blender artist forums, Blender Guru and YouTube were my best mentors at the time. I had to switch to Maya when I started university. I studied computer animation and visual effects. I was super reluctant to switch and even did most of my first year assignments in Blender, which I am glad they allowed. I became less stubborn about it as time passed and I tried to make use of my tutor's knowledge, so it turned out to be a natural transition. The fact that most studios I was interested in were using Maya also played a key role. This video is brought to you by Sketchfab, a platform for buying and selling 3D models online. Their store has a lot of high quality models to choose from using a great model inspector. Links in the description. I think with software it is always a balancing act between these factors. Quality of results, which exemplify the quality of the tools. How much the industry use it. This can affect your employability at a studio. If you are freelancing, it doesn't matter that much. And the steepness of the learning curve. It's always best to go with an open mind. Once you get a hang of a 3D app, especially Blender because you can do so much with it, all the other software are basically the same but under a different interface and shortcuts. All it takes is a few weeks to form the muscle memory to become really efficient. I'd also add, if you can prove with your work that you have an artistic eye and can raise to the quality someone is looking for, no matter the software, you will likely to have someone hiring you, assuming they find you of course in the first place. Once you get a job, if it is a studio, you will have to learn their pipeline and it better be more convenient for you to learn and use whatever everyone else is using there. Throughout university, I was a true believer that I didn't need it. After all, I was looking up to so many artists who had a successful career without it. I still think it is not necessary, especially if you are mature and self-motivated enough. For me, it was a great stepping stone and awesome to be physically surrounded by people interested in the same thing and growing as part of the community. There is nothing like university life. With that said, if all you are out for is information, everything you need is a few clicks away. I was lucky enough to get a summer internship at MPC as a modeler in my second year of university. That was quite eye-opening. Gaining the experience and being surrounded by professionals really raised my standards. After graduating, I had a friend working there who recommended me, and that's how I landed a full-time job. It was like nothing I have experienced before for sure. First, it was the pressure of modeling the first hero character of my career, which came out of nowhere because of the urgency of the redesign situation. Then there is the added twist of the character being so well known. I was constantly thinking that there were some huge Sonic fans out there who could spot out a fake from a mile away, so I tried my best to get familiar with the original design. Once the proportions and the forms were locked, we were pretty much set, and the rest of the time was spent on technical things. Things such as topology, UVs, facial shapes, and maintenance. In this specific case, it was basically only me sculpting and modeling Sonic because, from the model standpoint, he is very simple. On something like Godzilla, you will need 2 to 3 modelers to share the asset. I was constantly guided by my supervisor and helped me on very technical matters. Also, the props Sonic ever used were in the same character scene were made by other artists in Bangalore. I used to joke with the rigger, that we broke some kind of record. I lost count of the number, but we sure went past 100 shapes towards the end of it. It wasn't that we needed all of them to create the expressions. In fact, I remember that it was fairly stable with 30ish shapes. We needed all the other shapes because he was more cartoony and the animations had specific requirements which were difficult to meet in the VFX framework, so most of the other shapes were fixing problems when 2 or more shapes were activated or combined at the same time. I don't, unfortunately. For the body it is normally something in the range of 100k polygons. He really didn't need all that to support any kind of surface details, as he was basically all covered in fur, but we couldn't go too low either for technical reasons. I agree it is different. How I deal with it currently is by trying to do the best work I can do both on personal and professional projects. I try not to get personally involved in the studio work because it is their property. If I ever get frustrated about fulfilling artistic decisions, I let that out through personal work. With Sonic, I had the chance to work side by side with the art director, and we did that for a week. He had the 2D concept approved and flew to London so we could figure out the rest to translate the design into 3D. I tried to be honest and as vocal as I could with what I thought looked good. We used things and not others, but it was a great learning experience. On a more regular basis, modelers are tasked with matching and improving concept pieces of reference as closely as possible, and the artistic freedom lies in the smarter decisions. The least amount of questions your reference is solving, the more you will have to fill in the blanks yourself, upon which you will receive feedback and iterate on it. Don't overthink it, just create for the sake of creating, like you have probably done as a little kid with crayons, before you knew what looks good or bad, before you thought of impressing others, finding a job, making money, have your own name on a big screen or game or whatever. I think that if you manage to find joy in the simple act of doing it, all those will come as you keep practicing and getting better. To make progress faster, aim to do many different projects well, instead of stressing over a single perfect one, which you will hate soon after you finish it. When you want to learn something new, start a project that involves the new thing to fill a knowledge gap through practice and use of reference, which is not cheating, by the way. Give yourself breaks from the screen to learn about the world. Travel, read, exercise, draw, experience things, so you can recycle all the information and refuel your creativity. Always look up and try surrounding yourself with who you think are the very best artists in the world, while truly believing that you can surpass them. Lastly, share the knowledge you accumulated with everyone who will listen along the way. These are some key principles I've distilled from everyone I've learned so far, and wishing you all the best. I hope you found this interview with CG Cookie useful. If you have something to add, you can leave it in the comment section below. Also, you can take a look at some of our previous videos. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.